हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्ता कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नित्यानंदावधूतेन्दुर वसुध प्राणवल्लभ जानव जीवित पति कृष्ण प्रेम प्रद प्रभु पद्मावती सुत श्रीमान सचिनंदन पूर्वज भावोन्मत्त जगत्राता रक्त गौर कलेवरः। नमो नमो अनिरुद्धाय ऋषिकेश इंद्रियात्मने नमः परमहंसाय पूर्णाय निवृत्तात्मने स्वर्गपवर्गद्वाराय नित्यं शुचि सदे नमः। नमः हिरण्यवीर्याय चातुर्होत्राय तान्तवे। Alright, so last week we stopped at verse number, do you remember? The third chapter, 3.7, right? So again, what is the context of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? What is the main thrust? Karma Yoga, but what is the main thrust of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita? What is it which we want to be able to accomplish by learning the principles enunciated in the third chapter? Keeping Krishna in the center at all times. Karma Yoga essentially is action that we have to perform in this world based on our specific varna and ashrama. So we have a certain ashrama. Some of us, everyone here practically is in the Grahastha ashrama. So you have Brahmacharya, Grahastha, right, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, different ashramas and different varnas. So Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So in all these four varnas and four ashramas, we exist on this planet and we execute duties, right? And what we have chosen to do, for instance, coming to America is our choice. Choosing a certain profession is our choice. Being married, not being married is also a choice that we made, right? So we have made choices of made choices of varna and ashrama, and we are executing our duties on a daily basis. But there's a very good chance that the different roles that we play while executing these duties could overwhelm our identity of being Krishna's servant. So we are father, right? The duty of a mother, wife, husband, son, daughter, professional. These are different identities. Every one of these identities at some point in our life has the ability to overwhelm the identity of being Krishna's servant and take center stage. Right? Sometimes we feel that there is a lack of finances. So we have a tendency to focus so much on money and the idea of accumulating money that money comes to the center, Krishna has to go to the side. So profession takes a center stage, being Krishna's servant goes to the side. So this constant struggle in the material world between priorities. There's a constant struggle between the identity that has to be kept in the center. So the whole third chapter is about maintaining that priority. Right? Now, we also learned in the previous week's session, we'll go into it a little later, but typically I just want to give you a little background here. And the background which I want to give in today's session is to help us understand that there are fundamentally only two choices. There are fundamentally only two choices that we have on the planet once we come down here. In the beginning of creation, at the end of Brahma's day, all the lower planets get destroyed. The higher planets still retain their form. At the end of one day of Brahma, everything gets destroyed in the lower planets and the higher planets still retain their place. At the end of Brahma's life, there is total destruction and all the planetary systems enter into the body of Mahavishnu, right? And the souls, they also enter into the body of Sri Mahavishnu. So he is the Purusha who is lying on the causal ocean. He is Karanodakashayi Vishnu. As he lies on the causal ocean, the universes, each time he takes a breath, enter into the pores of his skin. Each time he breathes out, the universes manifest themselves again. So what does this mean? What is the lifespan of the Brahmas of the world? One breath of Mahavishnu is the lifespan of Sri Brahmaji. And what is Brahmaji's lifespan into our context? In one day, we pass through 1,000 cycles of yugas. In one day of Brahma, there are 1,000 cycles of yugas, 1,000 Satya yugas, 1,000 Treta yugas, 1,000 Dwapara and 1,000 Kalis in just one day, and so is the case in the night. So such a Lord Brahma, who is the master of the universe, he is the highest power in the material universe in terms of managing the material universes. He is the chief, right? He is the chief progenitor, as he is called. He is the secondary creator. The primary creator is Krishna. He is the secondary creator. He is inspired by Krishna to create. He is given the Shakti, the powers. Such a great personality does not exist even for one breath of Lord Mahavishnu, because each time he breathes in, the universes that are created just become unmanifest. Now, let's go back to Sri Mahavishnu. He holds in himself all the universes and the souls who are given a chance, in the sense that the souls who have not gone back to Godhead, they enter into his self. They become a part of him initially. Right. So, he lies right in the middle of the causal ocean. He lies between the material and the spiritual sky. Creation is such that the entire creation, there are 3/4 of the creation is spiritual, 1/4 is material. 3/4 is spiritual, 1/4 is material. The material portion of creation is only a smaller part and portion of the overall creation. So there is a river which divides the material sky and the spiritual sky, and Sri Mahavishnu lies on that river. So fundamentally, the idea is that we have an opportunity for us to either go back to our original existence, to the spiritual sky, or come back to the material universe each time the universes are manifest. There is an opportunity because we are right in the border. There is an opportunity there. But we choose to come. We are rebellious. We choose to come because we're still in touch with matter, and there are still karmic reactions for us to be able to act. We choose to come here. Since the choice has been made, Krishna makes that arrangement and he sends us down here. Right? When he is sending us down here, out of his great compassion, he also makes arrangements for us to get back to the spiritual sky. So what is he giving us while he is sending us here? What accompanies the living entities at the time of creation?
Vedas.
The scriptures. The Vedic scriptures accompany the living entities while creation occurs. So what do the Vedic scriptures talk about?
How to go back.
The Vedic scriptures give very specific instructions on Karma Yoga. The Vedic scriptures understand that a living entity who is taking birth and who is coming into this particular material universe has desires to fulfill. They are not inert, they are active, they are conscious, because these bodies are not dead. They are active, they are conscious, as a result of which they have to execute their desires. However, the desires themselves can become obstacles on the path of them returning back to the spiritual sky. So there's a very, very methodical, step-by-step process which is delineated in the Vedas of taking a soul from one stage to the second stage to the final stage. So the whole process is that you start following the Vedic principles while being on this planet, while eating, sleeping, mating and defending. These are the activities that are being performed on a day-to-day basis in different ashramas. While engaging in all these activities, you follow the principles enunciated in the Vedas. And by doing so, you become purified step by step. Even though you're fulfilling desires and you're conducting sacrifices, like those days, if you recall, during the Treta Yuga and so on, everything was a sacrifice, right? They used to say, Putra Kameshti Yoga, if you have a desire for a son, conduct a yoga. Now this is Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. Fruitive activity. I will do something, in return I want something from God. But while doing so, God is in the center. And since He is in the center, slowly, steadily, we are getting purified. That's number one. Number two, after doing many such cycles of, many lifetimes of such yajnas, many lifetimes of fulfilling our sense gratification, what does it result in? Frustration. Fundamental frustration. Since there is frustration even after performing such yajnas for many, many lifetimes, the living entity finally says, what is the purpose of all this? Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Aham Brahmasmi. Then Vedanta starts because there's deeper inquiry. But initially there's a lot of fruitive activity. There is activity where someone has a desire, he wants to fulfill the desires, but the Vedas say, don't fulfill your desires like an animal. You have to follow the rules and regulations to fulfill your desires. You desire something, these are the rules. Now, the whole system of rules and regulations in the Vedas are so intricate. They are intricate where there are rules for waking up, there are rules for putting our foot down from bed, there are rules when you wake up and wash your mouth and so on and so forth. You draw water in the middle of the night from the well, there are mantras. Incredible. Because there are living entities, there are devas, there are different personalities who can take offense where we commit actions which can possibly incarcerate us even further. So the whole idea is that you want to exist on this planet, you have to exist, you have to eat, sleep, depending on a social condition, there's mating and defending. You have to do all of this, but follow the rules and regulations. This is being stipulated. By following such rules and regulations, you would make improvements and you would reach a point where you would finally become frustrated and ask questions. So at that time, that Karma Kanda section of Vedas end. Then the Jnana starts, where we want to learn more about who we are and what we are and so on and so forth. Right? So the whole purpose is that these Vedas have been given, but how many of us can possibly take this up? Karma Yoga literally means that you exist in a certain ashrama, you exist in a certain varna, follow the rules and regulations of the Vedas, and then you will move forward. Right. But how many of us have the capacity to do so? As a result of which, understand this, 99.9999% of the population of this world is being incarcerated even more than they came in with. They come here, since they follow no rules and regulations whatsoever, the reactions keep adding up. So it's a system where you enter into a prison and there's no escape from the prison because you don't follow any rules, any regulations. You have an incapacity to follow such rules and regulations. 99.9999%, I would probably say it's almost non-existent because it's very difficult to follow those rules. 99.999% of the living entities, they live a life which is equal to that of an animal. Because they don't have any rules to follow, they are not aware of any rules, they exist like animals, eat, sleep, mate, defend, that's it. That's what an animal does. And human beings do the same. Now this is a challenge because there is no escape from this prison. There is no escape from this prison. There is no escape from this prison. And the problem is, if you have prisoners who are comfortable, they have absolutely no inclination to escape. That is the other side to it, where people think that they are happy. A pig thinks it's happy while eating stool and living in very abominable conditions. This is conditioning. And the human conditioning is also such that we engage in abominable activities thinking it's pleasurable. And this goes on, and it's very degrading lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. It's a very dangerous situation. It's dangerous because this body is a prison suit. Until such realization comes in, it is dangerous. This body is incarcerating us. This body is making demands. The body says, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, and if there is some other desire, you have to fulfill it because otherwise you go crazy. This is incarceration. This is not freedom. This is incarceration. And some bodies are even worse than others. It's relative. Some bodies, this kind of problem is even worse than others because it's a relative concept depending on the intensity of our imprisonment. And imagine getting into a situation that you can't handle. What is the guarantee that we are going to have a body in a home where we have the opportunity to continue? What is the guarantee? What is the guarantee that the next lifetime is not going to be in a human body and it's going to be in an animal body? What is the guarantee? What arrangements have we made to ensure that our next birth is at least human? So that's the dangerous existence of 99.99% of the population. They simply have no regard for what happens after the point of death. They have absolutely no regard for the purpose of life because they simply do not know. Right? So now Krishna, when he was 7 years old, there was a wonderful, beautiful pastime. And what pastime is that? I mean, there were many wonderful pastimes. There was a wonderful pastime where Sri Nanda Maharaj, what did he start to do? He said, I will have to do some yajna. It is traditional. Every year we offer oblations and we create sacrifices to please Indra. Lord Indra, who is in charge of rains. We will have to perform sacrifices because it is traditional in our community. We are farmers. Since we are farmers and we are dependent on rains, we have to perform sacrifices to please Lord Indra. This is a part of Karma Kanda in the Vedas. Please this Devata, please that Devata. It's a list. If you want this, you do this, and this is the personality. So Nanda Maharaj proposed this, and he was making wonderful arrangements. Krishna stopped him. He was only 7. He said, stop. He said, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Krishna consciousness was proven and given by Krishna to his father back when he was 7 years old. The Bhagavad Gita's principles were spoken while Krishna was 7 years old. Keeping Krishna in the center was the principle of the Bhagavad Gita. That principle was shared by Krishna when he was 7 years old to Nanda Maharaj. Nanda Maharaj stopped and asked him, why are you asking me to do this? Krishna said, you don't have to do this. It is very logical. Who is giving you grass? Who is giving you shade? Who is giving you plenty? It's Govardhan. Govardhan Hill is providing all the necessities for our cows. We are cowherdmen. It is providing lush grass. It's providing everything. So why can't you worship Govardhan? So what was the principle which Krishna was trying to prove to Nanda Maharaj? He wanted Nanda Maharaj to get out of Karmakanda and to keep him in the center. That is the whole principle of the Bhagavad Gita. What is the Paribhasha Sutra of the Bhagavad Gita? Which verse? 15:15. Let's go to 15:15 again. Right? Vedaischa sarvameva vedo vedantakrit vedavid chaham. Vedaischa sarverahame vedyo vedantakrit vedavideva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. If you want to forget Krishna, Krishna helps. Okay? By all the Vedas, I am to be known. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta. I am the knower of the Vedas. What does he say here in 15:15? This is the Paribhasha Sutra of the Bhagavad Gita. What does the Paribhasha Sutra mean? It means that this is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. If there is one verse which the Acharyas say is the most important verse which talks of the Bhagavad Gita, it is this verse. 15:15, according to our Acharyas, is the Paribhasha Sutra. So what is Krishna saying here? He is saying, I am the knower of the Vedas. I am the origin of the Vedas. By all Vedas, I am to be known. So he is now proving to Nanda Maharaj, saying, this is Bhagavad Gita. I am supposed to speak the Bhagavad Gita a few years down the line, but at the age of 7, I am already telling you the truth of the Bhagavad Gita. I am the compiler of the Vedas. I am to be known by the Vedas. Keep me in the center, Maharaj. Keep me in the center, Father. I am supposed to be in the center. Worship me, and everything else will be taken care of. This is the principle of Krishna consciousness. This was enunciated when he was 7. It was spoken when he was 120 on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. It was spoken millennia before. Lord Chaitanya appears 500 years back. He speaks the same truth, keeping Krishna in the center. So Shastras are completely consistent. If you look at the pastime of Govardhan, it is about keeping Krishna in the center. Because everybody sees that Govardhan Parvat takes on the form of Krishna. They can literally see that it's non-different from Krishna. And he is accepting all the offerings. Every kind of offering that you bring, he is consuming. And he is saying, give me more. Govardhan is non-different from Krishna. Sri Govardhan. Right. So what do we understand from this? We see that Krishna was preaching that move away from Karmakanda. If you cannot do Karmakanda, you should not do Karmakanda. Keep me in the center. It's as good as doing Karmakanda. So what are we trying to understand here? You have a choice. We all have a choice. Everyone here on this planet has a choice. We either follow the rules and regulations of Karmakanda or we follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. Krishna has to be kept in the center or we follow the rules and regulations of the Karmakanda. If we do not do either, we are incarcerating ourselves continually, lifetime after lifetime. So what is Krishna consciousness? Krishna consciousness is several principles. Number one, understanding who we are, understanding who is Krishna, understanding our relationship with Krishna, understanding the activities to be performed with Krishna in that relationship, and going to the goal. This is Krishna consciousness. But primarily, it is keeping Krishna in the center. Right. So now we read through these verses in Karma Yoga. These verses have a certain theme. The theme of Karma Yoga, the 3rd chapter, is to learn keeping Krishna in the center. Understanding that we have to keep him in the center. If we do not keep him in the center, it becomes very challenging. I've spoken about this before and I'm saying this again. Most devotees struggle in mastering the 3rd chapter and acting according to the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. When we come here, we are not trying to share principles that are esoteric by nature. I am not sharing principles that you just learn and think that you've got something in your head and go home and forget about it. We are talking about living in a certain way. If we cannot live according to the Bhagavad Gita, then it's practically useless to learn that knowledge. We have to live by the Shastra. When we hear, we are responsible to live. It is like a child who commits a misdemeanor, right? A small child. They do something wrong. We don't really blame the child because we consider that the child has very little knowledge, his intelligence is not fully developed, his exposure is not very high, so on and so forth. Right? There is a similar scale which is used by Krishna and his servants. When we come here and we receive knowledge, we are meant to implement such knowledge. We are held responsible because knowledge has been given. Do you realize what I'm saying? You come here and you're receiving knowledge, it means you have to implement it because you're held responsible for it. It's like saying, the police is saying, I've put you through driver training, I'm giving you a license, you know all the rules, you follow the rules, you break those rules, you're going to be behind bars. Okay, you cannot claim ignorance because I put you through that. Right? A dog crosses the road. Is that a problem? In India, animals cross the road all the time. Even in America, sometimes a dog escapes from, I was just going to Old Bridge a few years ago and I was on the parkway. I was just entering the parkway. And when I was entering the parkway, a lady in front of us, she had a van and there was a dog which was poking its head out of the window. The dog suddenly leapt out, middle of the traffic, and started running. So the whole traffic came to a complete stop. Okay. And you could have imagined what she was up to. I mean, she had completely broken down because her dog was running all over the Garden State Parkway at 9 o'clock in the morning. Right? You can imagine the sight. And then she was trying to capture the dog, and it was very draft, it just jump from one place to the other and so on and so forth. Now, do we, when we capture the dog, blame the dog for jaywalking? Do we blame it for crossing the road inappropriately? We cannot. It's an animal. But however, a human being is held responsible because a human being is supposed to have intelligence that can be applied. The same principle is used by Krishna and his servants. Knowledge is being provided, you will be held responsible. Simple. Do we understand? So most of what we share is to be implemented. If we cannot live according to the Bhagavad Gita, there's no point in listening. There's no point. We have to live according to the Bhagavad Gita. In India, it's quite fashionable that we purchase the Bhagavad Gita, they wrap it up in red cloth for some reason, I do not know why, and it is in the puja room and they offer aratik. No one reads it at home. They offer aratik. It is wonderful. It is not different from Krishna. But you have to read it, you hear it, you follow it. That is the actual purpose of Shastra. Shastra is to be lived by. So those of us who have taken up Krishna consciousness seriously, even those who have taken it up seriously, they face huge problems and they face struggles in the third chapter. They cannot cross the third chapter. There is a treasure beyond the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. If we do not master the third chapter, if we do not live according to the tenets of the third chapter, you will not be able to get to that treasure. The fourth chapter is transcendental knowledge. It talks about who we are. It talks about who is Krishna. It talks about our relationship. It talks about the activities in the relationship. There is no question of getting to the fourth chapter without figuring out how to live according to the third chapter. And living according to the third chapter is keeping Krishna in the center. Living according to the third chapter is keeping Krishna in the center. That is all there is to it. Keeping Krishna in the center is all there is to it. There is nothing more than that. Since there is such a big struggle in our lifetimes, an inability to keep Krishna in the center, we face problems, and devotees struggle. They struggle. They make choices in their life which forces Krishna from the center. Their priorities overwhelm them. Now the question that arises is, can I keep Krishna constantly in the center while being a family man? Right? Most people say this, Prabhu, I'm a professional. How do I constantly keep Krishna in the center? How is it possible for me? Because I have children, I have other priorities, so on and so forth. How do I keep Krishna in the center? Our acharyas and the Lord have been extremely, extremely merciful. They have given us examples of different ashramas, different varnas, and how successfully they were pure devotees. One example which we remember, during Gaur Leela, 500 years back, there was a great personality, Sri Gadadhar Pandit. We all say Gadadhar Pandit, right? He is one of the Panchatattva. He is a personification of the internal potency of the Lord amongst the Panchatattva. He is a personification of Srimati Radharani's mood in the Panchatattva. That is Sri Gadadhar Pandit. Exalted personality. One day, Sri Gadadhar Pandit and Sri Mukunda Datta, the two of them were visiting a great Vaishnava by name Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi was a great personality who had come to town and they were visiting him. So Mukunda Datta, he knew Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi, so he wanted to bring Sri Gadadhar Pandit and introduce him to Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So he took him to his house. So they entered a very palatial mansion. Once they entered a palatial mansion, they were led inside when they inquired about Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi. They were led inside to the chambers and there were many servants. It was extremely luxurious, an extremely luxurious, well-appointed mansion. He was brought inside Sri Gadadhar Pandit and he saw Sri Mukunda Datta. He saw Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi was actually lying down on bed. He was extremely well dressed in the finest of silk. The bed itself was extremely opulent with all kinds of silk and wonderful cushions, very, very comfortable. He had, kind of put some scented oil on his hair. These are things which are considered to be luxurious. He had put some scented oil. A servant had kept, a bowl for him to spit. He was having pan. Right. So he was lying on the bed in silk. An extremely opulent surroundings, an extremely opulent looking personality. He was a very, very successful businessman. He was a very highly successful businessman. So the moment Sri Gadadhar Pandit saw him, Sri Gadadhar Pandit felt completely disappointed because he had heard so much about him. And he wanted to meet and he was expecting to see someone who was an extremely austere Vaishnava, sadhu, so on and so forth. He walks into this house, which is like a palace, and he finds someone lying on bed, and he is so opulently surrounded. He is far, far from a situation of someone who is supposed to be a simple looking sadhu, for instance. So he was very disappointed. He was thinking, what is this all about? What is this all about? Where have I been brought here? Because Sri Gadadhar Pandit is known for his renunciation. He was a great renunciate. What have you brought me? You have brought me to a place which is not supposed to be proper for me. Why have you brought me here? He was looking at Mukunda Datta saying, why are we here? Who is this personality? So Sri Mukunda Datta said, this is Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu. So Gadadhar Pandit was very shocked. He was so shocked that at that time it was recognized. Then Sri Mukunda Datta pacified him, said, wait a minute, we'll see. Sri Mukunda Datta picked up the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu was just lying on the bed with his eyes closed. Sri Mukunda Datta picked up the Bhagavatam and started reading from the Bhagavatam. And as he read from the Bhagavatam, Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi went into a trance. And he went into such ecstasy that he fell out of bed. Literally. He literally, weeping, fell out of bed in hearing just the verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was such a highly placed and elevated Vaishnava that hearing Krishna's glories from the Srimad Bhagavatam was enough to send him into a deep blissful condition of ecstasy, where that ecstasy basically was such that he could not control himself. He just fell out of bed and he fainted. Why do people faint? You can't fake it for too long. There are many who fake it, but you cannot fake it because the soul is going through certain experiences. The soul is going through certain spiritual experiences. This body is made of matter. This body is not able to comprehend the experiences of the soul. It just gets traumatized enough that it faints. Like you have an accident, people just faint. They pass out. If they hear something very traumatic, they pass out because the body is not able to understand, comprehend, not able to handle it. Spiritual ecstasy is also such because the experience of the soul cannot be understood, cannot be fathomed by the body. So he faints. Looking at this, Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu realizes that he had committed a great offense, that he had offended such a great personality who, by merely hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, could not even contain himself. He completely lost consciousness. Then Sri Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu takes initiation from Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi. He becomes his disciple. Okay? Now we are seeing this particular situation. What is so special about the situation? The situation is special because now you have circumstances, right? You have circumstances where a devotee who is in what varna? He is a Vaishya, he is a businessman. A businessman, what ashrama is he in? He is Grahasthashram, right? He is in Grahasthashram and he basically is an extremely elevated personality who successfully keeps Krishna in the center. Correct? Now let us take a look at another example. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. You can see him here with the beard. Now when you say Babaji Maharaj, he is a renunciate. And what kind of renunciation? His renunciation was intense. It was severe. It's not unimaginable level of renunciation. He was completely illiterate and he was a completely strong, he was an extremely powerful renunciate to such an extent that his vairagya, detachment from matter, was something which was unbelievable. There were instances where people, knowing him to be a very powerful personality, used to approach him for boons, blessings. India happens, right? India, you walk along and someone is wearing saffron, they know he's a Babaji, he's a sadhu, people immediately go to him. Please bless me, Ashirwad de do. Okay. Once they approached Prabhupada in Bombay, when Prabhupada ji was in Bombay, they approached Prabhupada ji, and one man came and with great enthusiasm came to him that, give me blessings, give me blessings. And Prabhupada looked at him very gravely and said, I bless you that you will be completely free of all kinds of material entanglements. My blessings are, you will be completely free of all material entanglements. He said, no, 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 Maharaj, I don't want this. I want blessings. So in India, they ask blessings. Blessings means, yes, I've come here and somehow or the other, you have something and I want it from you. You are a sadhu, you have piety, give me that. So they are not there for the real purpose of meeting and then engaging in the service of the sadhu. The purpose is, let me go and grab something from the sadhu so that it will be beneficial to me. Okay. Srila Prabhupada said, your material life is over. That's my blessing. People are so afraid because they don't have anything else. What? How could you stop my material life? I don't have anything else. What would I do for happiness? This is all I have. The person almost fainted when Prabhupada gave him the blessing. So similarly, he was an extremely elevated personality. People knew that. So people used to approach him and circle him and say, you come or the other, you come stay with me. I'll do this favor for you, I'll do that favor for you. They want to extract some favor or the other because the blessings of such a personality are very potent. So people come for that. So he did not want this kind of attention. He simply wanted to be able to chant the holy names. So what did he do? He went and he was living in a toilet for 6 months. He used to sit and chant in a toilet for 6 months. Because the toilet was despicable, no one used to come near the toilet, he used to be in peace. I had a similar experience somewhat. I was visiting Govardhan a few years back, and in Govardhan Parikrama, you come to Manasaganga. Right? Have you heard of Manasaganga? Manasaganga is a place on the way Parikrama path of Sri Govardhan. While we were doing Parikrama, then the devotee who was actually helping us go around Govardhan, he was helping us go around the Parikrama path, he took us to a spot on the banks of the Manasaganga which was really filthy. India, the standards are so poor that it was very filthy, but people don't even have realization that it's such a special place. It was filthy. So I asked him, I said, Prabhuji, that place looks quite clean. I was able to see from there. Why did you bring me here and why are you keeping us here and talking about Manasaganga? Why don't we go there? Here I have to keep my nose closed while I'm listening to you. Why are you doing this? He said, Prabhuji, here only the floor is dirty. There are pandas who will trouble us. It is better to be here. Okay? Now there are priests on the other side who will trouble us for money to such an extent that we cannot even have a conversation about the glories of Manasaganga. So this stench is better. We'll stay here, we'll talk about Krishna, we'll move on. Right? So in a similar fashion, if you want to avoid people, it's okay to choose a place where they would not come. That's it, because most people cannot even take any affliction to the body. So Shri Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj spent 6 months. 6 months avoiding the population. He did not have any other disciple than Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had to beg him. He literally had to tell him that I will leave my body, I will commit suicide if you don't give me initiation. And that was when he finally relented and he accepted him as a disciple. Because he was so fixed on becoming a disciple of Shri Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj that he said, I will not accept anybody else as my guru unless you accept me, otherwise I am ready to give up this body. I don't want this body, I don't want this existence, I have accepted you. So Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj finally relented and then gave him a mantra and he accepted him as a disciple. So he was Vairagya Murti. Vairagya, where he used to live on the banks of the Ganges. He used to pick up the cloth which covers the corpses, the dead body. That particular cloth which is cast away while they burn the dead body on the banks of the Ganges, according to Vedic standards, that you cannot even touch that because it's filthy. But his vairagya was such that he used to wash it, he used to wear it. People used to throw away pots after using them, right? Those earthen pots are considered to be filthy. You're not supposed to touch them once it is thrown. But that he used to use for cooking. That was his cooking. So his whole idea was that I will do everything in such a way that I will have absolutely no focus on this body. Complete vairagya. Complete opposite of Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi's example. Can you see that? In one case, we noticed that Pundarik Vidyanidhi was in the midst of luxury, and you have such an elevated personality who is a successful businessman, and he is so elevated that he cannot even hear the Srimad Bhagavatam without going into a trance. Now you have an opposite example of a complete renunciate who does not want to have anything to do with human society, and he wants to practice Krishna consciousness, he wants to keep Krishna in the center. Now what is it which you learn from this? What is it which you learn from these two examples?
Renunciated man or Grihastha, both can follow Krishna consciousness.
So the Varna and the Ashrama are not obstacles, they are vehicles. One could be a married person and a successful businessman, and he can keep Krishna in the center and elevate himself. One could be a complete renunciate who has rejected society and all kinds of aspects of day-to-day interactions with society. Such a person can keep Krishna effectively in the center and live a life. Krishna consciousness is about keeping Krishna in the center. There are no obstacles. There are no obstacles. The reason why we took up Sri Pundarik Vidyanidhi's example is to say that keeping Krishna in the center need not necessarily mean that we stop living. It means we keep Krishna in the center and we really start living, finally. Because real life starts when you awaken your aspirations from within. When you start keeping Krishna in the center and you awaken the needs of the soul, that's when your real life starts. Otherwise, we are living a dead existence. So a third example that you can take up is of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He is right here, the fourth personality wearing a dhoti. He had 11 children. He was the chief judicial magistrate in Jagannath Puri. He was the chief administrative officer of the Puri temple, and he had 11 children. And he had written around 100 books, and he was an extremely successful magistrate. Extremely successful. In those days, there were only two of them, two Indian magistrates. He was one of them. In the whole of India, in the British government service, he was one of them. He was a very successful personality where the British government constantly wanted to keep him, and they did not want to leave him while he was managing in India because he was very successful. He was very efficient. If you visit Mayapur, you will see rail tracks going from his house all the way to Navadvip. Those rail tracks were laid out by the British government, and they used to send a train every day to pick him up. It was done for his transportation, back and forth, specifically. And he used to enter into the train and he used to sit on the floor. All the other villagers used to sit on the cabin and everything. They used to travel comfortably. Right? So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, 11 children, 100 books. He re-established Krishna consciousness. Successful professional. Right? And his books were published in America and Canada and so on and so forth. He had sent his books. Such a successful personality. He very successfully kept Krishna in the center. These are success stories. How is his success measured? His success is measured because he produced a son such as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. You cannot bring forth children of such high quality unless you set up an environment which is conducive. Right? So he set up an environment which was conducive enough for Krishna to send such a high class personality to be with him, to initiate and to push the movement of Lord Chaitanya forward. So now we are looking at different personalities in the parampara. Every one of them is of a completely different nature. They are giving us different lessons. You go back and you read the Srimad Bhagavatam, you will find the same lessons throughout. You have kings, you have complete renunciates, you have examples of men, you have examples of women, you have examples of children, Can you imagine the entire Bhagavatam gives you different examples of different age groups, different ashramas, different varnas, and all of them were successful in doing what? Keeping Krishna in the center, because this is possible. That's the beauty of Shastra. Shastra is giving us examples that are possible, that have been done. It is showing you that there's something which is quite possible. So what excuse can we possibly have? We simply do not have any other excuse. We don't have any excuses. It is so simple. To keep Krishna in the center is so simple. Right. So this is the function of the third chapter. The whole idea of the third chapter is figure out how to keep Krishna in the center and constantly take decisions based on keeping Krishna in the center. That's what this is about. Now, how much time do we have? It's 9:40. So I'm just going to read a couple of verses which are associated with what we spoke, and then we'll move on. Verse 8. Niyatam kuru karma tvam.
Niyatam kuru karma tvam.
Karma jyayo hi akarmanaha.
Karma jyayo hi karmanaha.
Sharira yatra pichate.
Sharira yatra pichate.
Na prasiddhyet akarmanaha.
Na prasiddhyet akarmanaha.
Perform your prescribed duty.
Perform your prescribed duty.
For doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. So Krishna consciousness is not about inaction. This is not about going into a cave, shutting the cave and shutting ourselves from society. Karma Yoga is about existing in society, carrying out the actions based on prescribed duty. What is prescribed according to Varna and Ashrama? Carry out those duties, effectively keeping Krishna in the center. Now, text 9. Yajñārtāt karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanah
Lokoyam karma bandhana.
tadartam karma kaunteya
Tadartam karma kaunteya.
mukta sanga samachara.
Mukta sangha samachara.
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu
has to be performed.
has to be performed.
Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world.
Work causes bondage in this material world.
Therefore, O son of Kunti,
Therefore, O son of Kunti,
perform your prescribed duties
perform your prescribed duties
for his satisfaction,
for his satisfaction,
and in that way,
and in that way
you will always remain free from bondage.
you will always remain free from bondage.
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. You are in a certain ashrama, you are in a certain varna, perform work. And I've said this to you many times. One cannot be an efficient spiritualist and be inefficient at work. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he used to accomplish in 2 hours what most people would take 10 hours to accomplish in a day. He used to go through the case files as a magistrate so efficiently. He used to accomplish that in 2 hours. How many hours? What was his schedule? I've spoken about it before. He used to come home at 5 o'clock and have prasad. And his prasad used to be regularly fixed. 2 chapatis, rice, sabji, dal. This was fixed prasad in the evening. He used to then go to bed after some time. He used to go to bed at around 7:30 in the night. He used to wake up at 10 o'clock. See, those days there was no television. You see, there was no distraction. You can go to bed at 7:30 in the evening because the the electricity was not something which was easily available. There were candles and there were lamps and so on. People were completely dependent on the Lord and the ability of the Lord to provide energy through the sun. The sun sets, activity comes to a close, the body clock adjusts itself, people go to bed. He used to go to bed at 7:30 in the evening. He used to wake up at 10 in the night. Between 10 and 4, he used to write. Between 10 and 4, he used to write. He used to sleep for half hour between 4 and 4:30. At 4:30, he used to chant until 7. And then he used to go through the morning ablutions, and then he used to have his little prasad. In the morning, it was a cup of milk, it was 2 chapatis and a little fruit. This was morning prasad. And he used to head out to work. This was his schedule. Come back in the evening. In the afternoon, he used to get rest for a half hour or so. This was done. This was his schedule. What is he showing us? He's basically showing us very clearly that if you want to keep Krishna in the center and if you want to serve him, then you can go beyond the body. This is not to be imitated by us, but this is to give us an understanding of what is possible. If you really want to serve, sleeping, eating, these are not issues. These are non-issues you can manage. You can regulate yourself. If you really want to serve, if you really want to keep Krishna in the center, you can manage. Yes. This is not cheap imitation, but it's a fact. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur did his prescribed duty. He didn't run away from it. He did it so efficiently, and I've spoken about this so many times before. It does not mean that you neglect what you need to do at work. It means that you take care of whatever you have to do at work nicely so that you don't have to worry about it. You take care of whatever has to be done at home nicely so you don't have to worry about it. You take care of money business and you bring in money into the family so you don't have to worry about it. So we don't really neglect the aspects of our life. We take care of them so that they do not become obstacles, but instead support us in our Krishna consciousness. That's the principle that is being enunciated here. Saying, do your prescribed duty. Keep Krishna in the center, which is what is being said here. Saying, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise work causes bondage in this material world. I spoke of this before. Every step that we take can incarcerate us in this world, unless we keep Krishna in the center. Perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, which is keep him in the center, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. Very simple instruction. Let's go to the next verse quickly. Sahayajñah prajaha shishtva
Sahayajñah prajaha shishtva
purovacha prajapatihi
Purovacha prajapatihi
anena prasavistyadvam
Anena prasavistyadvam
eshaostva istakamaduk. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So both are being taken care of. This is what we spoke of earlier on, saying he sent us down, he sent the Vedas, and he also gave us instructions on how to proceed. How do you live happily, and how do you also get liberated from matter? So let's just quickly read text 11 because it's also contextual. Devan bhavayatanena tadeva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantah shreyah param avapsyata. The demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. Now, let's quickly read verse 12 as well. Same thing. Ishtan bhogan hi vo deva dashyante yajna bhavitah Ter dattan apradabhyayo. Yeah, sorry. Yo bhunkte stena eva saha. So the translation: in charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied by the performance of yajna will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. Okay, now let's read the last one, which is verse 13. Yagyasishtashinah santo muchyante sarva kilbishaihi
मुच्यन्ते सर्वकिल्बिषैः
bunjate te tvamagam papa
भुञ्जते ते पाप
ye pachanti atmakaranat.
ये पचन्ति आत्मकारणात्.
The devotees of the Lord
The devotees of the Lord
are released from all kinds of sins
are released from all kinds of sins
because
because
they eat food
they eat food
which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food
others prepare food
for personal sense enjoyment
for personal sense enjoyment.
verily
Verily,
eat only sin.
eat only sin.
So this is a perfect example of keeping Krishna in the center in the activity of eating. How do we keep him in the center in the activity of eating? By offering our food that is prepared with love and devotion for his consumption first. We prepare food, we offer it to him, and then we accept it, and that food which has been sanctified by the acceptance of Krishna is prasadam, mercy, kripa. When we consume it, we become liberated. If we do not involve Krishna in food, in prasadam, the activity of eating, we are verily eating sin. Every grain that goes into the body is a sinful reaction. Grains are very heavy. They're very heavy. They carry a lot of reactions, specifically grains, not so much vegetables, grains. You have to be very careful. So you always offer and then accept, otherwise there are reactions. Now this is again a part of Karma Yoga. Eating, sleeping, two activities. Karma Yoga. So for personal consumption, one who just eats just for sense enjoyment is eating like an animal. Because he has no concept or she has no concept of keeping Krishna in the center. They have no concept. So Krishna says very clearly, you are eating sin. And what is the result of sin? This body is a result of sin. Our desires are a result of sin. And they make us suffer. Right? We'll stop here. We'll probably continue this topic in the subsequent week. I want to just stop here. But yeah, we can go on with this particular topic a little further. I can share a few more details in the next session. Right? Any questions?
Yes, sir. 11th verse, isn't it saying that we should worship demigods too? Like they are saying the demigods being pleased by sacrifices. That means we should make some sacrifices to the demigods.
The distinction is that you make sacrifices to the demigods. This was the thing which Krishna was wanting to say to Nanda Maharaj.
Yeah.
You are worshipping Indradev. Do not worship Indradev. Instead of worshipping him, worship me. Keep me in the center. Right? So, the choices are, you follow the principles of Karma Kanda, where you worship the demigods, them being pleased, they will give you things in return. What is the other aspect of it? The other aspect of it is, since the whole purpose of the Vedas is to attain Krishna, keeping him in the center, worshipping him, and then offering him everything, keeping him in the center of our lives, is sacrifice. So
why
we-
this verse was made to speak Krishna to Arjuna?
I'm sorry?
What was the context? Why Krishna has to speak such words to Arjuna?
Because there are people who would want to worship the demigods. There are people who follow Varnashrama. There are people who would want to follow Varnashrama. So this is the principle of Varnashrama, where you keep the representatives of Krishna and then you worship the demigods. They in turn would give you the results. Okay? The other choice is you keep Krishna in the center, which is actually the principle of Varnashrama. The main principle of Varnashrama is to keep Krishna in the center. That is the essence of the Vedas. But there are personalities who directly worship the demigods. So instructions are being given. As you do so, you will get results from the demigods. So this is not a recommendation by Krishna, because further down he makes it very clear on how things should be. Anything else?
Can you explain how Krishna is directing the attention of Nand Maharaj and everybody else towards him by requesting them to worship Govardhan?
Because Krishna manifests himself. Everybody sees Krishna in Govardhan. Govardhan, during the festival of Govardhan Puja, when Sri Govardhan is being worshipped by Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men and women, and they are bringing in wonderful footsteps, they actually literally see that it is Krishna himself who has taken on the form of Sri Govardhan. Is non-different, is completely non-different.
This happened before this incident.
Exactly. Exactly. Then Indra gets infuriated because he does not realize that this is Krishna. He does not realize this is my boss. He is looking down and he is seeing a bluish boy. He has got dirt on his face. He is playing with his friends. He is stealing butter. He is doing all kinds of pranks. How could he be my boss? He is confused. This is not my boss. So that's the reason why Sri Indra becomes infuriated when Krishna does this, and he sends the clouds which can cause the dissolution of the planet to rain on Vrindavan. And Krishna protects the cows and he protects the cowherd men and women by lifting Govardhan in his little finger. So we worship Sri Govardhan as being non-different from the Lord. Every stone Shila from Govardhan has the personality of the Supreme Lord. It is non-different from Krishna. Has the personality of the Supreme Lord. Completely non-different from Krishna. Anything else?
When you talk about material creation, is spiritual creation also dependent on Mahavishnu or Krishna?
Spiritual creation is it. Yeah.
If you can repeat the questions, because last time somebody was saying that he couldn't hear
The question, so they cannot understand my answers. Okay. The question which was asked by Raj Prabhu here was spiritual creation also a manifestation of Mahavishnu? Does he create it? Is that what you're saying? The spiritual creation is an expansion of Sri Balaram. Completely. Everything is an expansion of Balaram, literally.
So it doesn't go back. Rather than my question is also like materially goes back with it.
There is no such thing as manifest and unmanifest for spirituality, spiritual creation. It's eternal. It is Satya. Asatya is material. Today, you see a body with arms and legs and a face. Tomorrow, the body is destroyed, and what is left? You just have a pile of ashes, which is also matter, in place of the body. Now, there was manifestation, then there is unmanifestation. Right? Similarly, a soul which was in one body leaves one body and goes to another, it manifests its activities. And then again there is unmanifest. In the spiritual sky, there is no such thing as manifestation and unmanifestation. And spiritual sky is an extension of Sri Balaram. Yeah. Anything else?
Can we also think that Krishna asked Arjuna to perform worship to Durga Devi before God? Can we also take in the same manner that he is trying to put Varnashrama in place, not so much that you need to worship me, not anyone else, Shiva or Durga Devi?
No. Can you repeat your question again?
My question was like earlier, as you explained, right? According to the verse, what was the context when he said he asked Arjuna to actually worship Durga Devi?
What was the context? Well, specifically, Durga Devi was worshipped for knowledge of certain weapons. Specifically, Durga Devi was worshipped for Arjun to develop faith in terms of what his relationship with the Supreme Lord itself was. What happens? He worships Durga Devi as instructed by Krishna. Now understand this. There's a big difference between Arjun losing faith in Krishna and saying, I will worship Durga Devi. Big difference between that and Krishna himself saying, Arjun, go and worship Durga Devi. Big difference. So Arjun did not act beyond what Krishna spoke to him. Krishna said, do this, he did it. Do not do this, he did not do it. So he said, worship Durga Devi because she appeared. And then what did she say? She fundamentally said that you have his protection. Where is the question of my interfering with anything that you want to do? So what assurance she gave? You are under his protection. You are under Narayan's protection. What can I say? I can only give you my protection. I can only give you my blessings in this endeavor. Right? So these are aspects where we should not confuse what Arjun did with our own desires. So we may desire that we want to worship someone other than Krishna because our faith is not steady. But that is not to be compared with a pure devotee as personal friend and associate who has been specifically instructed by the Lord saying do this so that he could have more realizations of his relationships, he could have more realizations of his protection before. Plus, he wanted him to receive blessings from such a great personality. Durga Devi is a great personality. Such a great personality. Shiva is such a great personality because these are expansions of Krishna and his consort in the material universe. So they were great personalities. In fact, before we start the yatra in any dham, we go for yatra, the instructions are we go and worship Lord Shiva and his consort before we go to any yatra. Why? Because he is a Parama Vaishnava, Shiva. Without his blessings, you cannot go and approach Krishna. Right? So in such a situation, the Vaishnavas, Acharyas, are very clear on the role and position of Shiva and his consort. You go worship them and then they will lift the veil. Because every spiritual place, Dham, Jagannath Puri, Mayapur Dham, Vrindavan Dham, it actually exists in such a way, it may appear it's on this material plane, but in reality, it is spiritual. Then there's a thin film of material plane covering it. So if you go with material consciousness, you can stay on the material aspect of the Dham and just view a few pigs running by, a few dogs going by. I've heard this from people coming back from Vrindavan. How was your trip, Prabhu? Prabhu, Vrindavan smells. I've heard this too. It's so dirty. Why aren't they cleaning it up? And then you also hear the other version saying, Prabhu, I went there. I went to Sri Radha Kund. I saw the Samadhi of Raghunath Das Goswami. And that was, it was so important for me because I've heard so much about our different saintly personalities. I'm seeing them now. And, I've come back with an even greater, stronger faith. Now, in the two cases, what I'm talking about, in the first case, is a situation where the eyes are covered, where you're only able to see the material manifestation. In the second case, you're able to see the spiritual manifestation, you're able to see the Dham. Right? So this particular lifting of the eyes, the veil that covers the eyes, this ability for us to be able to go to a place and be on the spiritual side is given by Lord Shiva. It is his duty. That's why he is called Kshetrapal. He is called Gopeshwara. He reveals the pastimes. No one can enter into Krishna's pastimes without his blessings. Anything else? Oh, you're upstairs, Mataji. Okay, that's fine.
It's not related to the class, but my brother, the chanting, some people when they chant, they feel very pleasure, they feel positive. Some people when they chant, they feel negative, they say that after chanting I'm getting more problems. So, can you give some...
Okay, sure, thank you.
Can you question comments?
Answer the question, right?
No, repeat.
I'll repeat the question and I'll answer. So your brother is online too.
Yeah.
So, see, the question from Premapada Mataji, I guess she's asking on behalf of Ashok, right? Is that some of us chant and we feel completely energized while we chant the holy names and we want to take it up wonderfully. A few others chant and they feel even more worse than they were before they started chanting. So what is this all about? See, one has to realize in both cases the Mahamantra is working. So okay? In both cases the Mahamantra is working. And how so? In the first case the Mahamantra is working because Krishna is giving you a taste. It does not mean that we are pure. It means that when you are starting to chant, Krishna is giving you a taste of his holy names. In the other case, where you feel that while you're chanting, you feel that the thoughts that are coming out are even worse and darker than they were before I started chanting, it means that your heart is being cleansed. Do you realize that when you enter into a room that has never been cleaned before, that is our heart, before we come to Krishna consciousness, this heart has never been cleaned before of dust. You enter into the room and you start dusting, right? What happens to that? That room looks even more dirty than it was before when you start dusting it, because the dust gets unsettled. It starts flying here and there. It blurs our eyes. It appears that as I'm starting to dust, it looks even more dirty. So that's the same situation. Our heart has not been cleansed ever. And when we start chanting, the Mahamantra acts at such a deep level, it uproots the roots of karma for millions of lifetimes. And as it is uprooting the roots of karma for millions of lifetimes, we feel that we are dirty. We feel that, oh, what is this thought? I never used to feel this way before. It is because it's coming out. Our heart is opening out, and the heart and the mind, they are putting things in front of us on the table and say, look at this. This was inside. This was inside. I'm removing it. Okay? So what is the solution? The solution is the person should continue to chant with great faith, because it means that the Mahamantra is working. It means the cleansing process has started. Karma, which is like a very deep-rooted tree, is being uprooted and it is being taken out. While the tree is being uprooted, there will surely be a few things flying here and there. It will appear as if there is greater disturbance. One should continue to chant with great faith, and that would be very beneficial. Right? Yes, Mataji.
I read in a book that if you hear Maha Mantra from a person that who is not honest or the good one, who is not the good one, if you hear Maha Mantra from his mouth, it was like poison.
That is like milk touched by the lips of a serpent.
Oh.
Okay. Her question is, I've heard that if you hear the Mahamantra from a person who is completely disqualified, who has absolutely no regard for the mantra itself, such chanting has a negative effect on us. So you want an explanation for what that is all about. See, fundamentally, the vessel that carries the Mahamantra is also important. When we hear Srila Prabhupada's chanting, it has such a powerful experience for us in the entire room. The entire room gets purified. I have sometimes noticed this. I used to keep Srila Prabhupada's chanting constantly on in the office in such a level where nobody can hear. But the energy used to be so powerful, even though that it used to extremely be powerful and potent, it used to purify the entire atmosphere. But on the other hand, if you hear from people who are contaminated in terms of their thoughts and their respect, it does not inspire anything in you. It does not inspire anything in you. You're not able to identify it. So it requires for us to understand this. In some cases, for example, I've seen that I used to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam recited by a professional reciter 20-25 years back. I used to hear, and it used to be so well said and well spoken, and it used to be so wonderful that I used to hear it till 1 o'clock in the morning, and I never used to miss Mangalarti. So the whole purpose is that you listen to Srimad Bhagavatam, you listen to Katha, you listen to everything, and you act upon it. If it does not inspire you to act, it means that there's something wrong. That is what I've been telling you. You have to be able to act upon it. So that's very important. So you have to be very careful in terms of where and who you are hearing it from. So sincere intentions of a devotee chanting, the devotee could be a very simple person, but very sincerely if they are chanting, that chanting is very potent, it's very powerful. On the other hand, if it is done malevolently with some kind of disregard, then, for the Asuras, used to say, Krishna, how inspiring is that to develop bhakti in you? The Asuras used to say that, right? Kamsa, he used to say Krishna, but with great hatred. how could that inspire great bhakti in another person? Right? It is the same Krishna, but it is being said unfavorably. So Srila Rupa Goswami says, our Acharya says, devotional service has to be favorable. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. So Anukulyena means favorable to Krishna. Even the Asuras were remembering Krishna, but we have to remember Krishna in a favorable way. That's the difference. Anything else? Hanji. Yes. Hare Krishna.
One stupid question regarding Mahamantra. See, many times I've heard, if they know proper pronunciation, they must have heard, but they will say, instead of Hare, they will say Hare. And then for Ram, they will say Ramo. So that is basically disfiguring the Mahamantra. And then the effect, like simple matra here, there can bring a lot of bad results also. So, what is advisable like?
Good question. So there's a Prabhu here, I don't know your name, I'm sorry. Gaurav Prabhu is raising a question saying that sometimes he has heard the Mahamantra being mispronounced. The chances are they know how to pronounce it, but then in their own way, they're casual, they mispronounce the Mahamantra. What would be the effect of such chanting? What will be the impact? The idea is that yes, it has to be pronounced carefully. Sanskrit mantras have a certain set of syllables. It has to be pronounced carefully. We have to pronounce it nicely, so on and so forth. That is ideal. However, Krishna accepts the chanting of his holy names if it is done with bhakti. There is absolutely no malice. Even though it may not be pronounced properly, he accepts the intention, he turns around. So for example, you are Gaurav, but then someone who is very dear to you could be calling you in a different way. Correct? With love. Do you respond? You obviously respond favorably. In a similar fashion, even though we don't pronounce it well because of a disqualification, right? Since we are calling him with love, he responds. So that's the beauty of the Mahamantra. Bhavagrahi Janardhan. Absolutely. Right. You have the answers. Good. Right? So, anything else or should we stop here? Yes, Mataji.
So when you chant like Hare Ram, it's the same effect like Rama.
Her question is, when I chant Hare Ram, is it the same effect as Rama? The effect would be the same. We want to concentrate on the mantra. The effect would be the same. Ram, the effect is the same. We do not want to disparage. But if you can chant Rama, it's always beneficial because that is the full word, Rama, Krishna. It's beneficial. So we don't want to put ourselves down and focus on rules and regulations. We want to focus on being able to do so. But pronunciation is important because in most cases when we start chanting and we don't pay attention to how we pronounce and we mispronounce, then it becomes more a question of disregard rather than anything else. Someone whose Sanskrit may not be quite good, whose ability to speak Hindi and Sanskrit may not be good, if they cannot pronounce even though they are paying attention, that is considered to be perfectly alright because Krishna will respond. But if we have the ability to do so, but we are doing so because we do not care, we are sleepy, we are somewhat nonchalant about doing that activity, then that will surely not be beneficial. Yeah, it's our consciousness. It's our consciousness fundamentally. So it's always beneficial to hear the mantra. Do not do anything else. Close your eyes, chant, and hear the pronunciation carefully. That's very important.
Even I hear Prabhupada chanting very quick. It sounds so quick that
Yeah, when he chants, it's pretty quick. But it's better that we take our time. Normally, for one mala, it should take 7 minutes if you do it properly. But as time goes by, it becomes quicker because we have the ability to concentrate. Our concentration improves, our focus on the mantra improves, so it becomes quicker. It reduces to 5 minutes. But initially, it's at least 7 to 8 minutes, one mala. Right? I think we'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
A couple of announcements. Couple of announcements. I
Yeah,
wanted
please
to do.
go ahead.